I've got something in my front pocket for you. Why don't you reach on in my pocket and see what it is? Then grab onto it, it's just for you. Give it a little squeeze and say, how do you do? Something in my front pocket for you. Why don't you reach on in my pocket and see what it is? Then grab onto it, it's just for you. Give it a little squeeze and say, how do you do? There's something in my front pocket. There's something in my front pocket. There's something in my front pocket.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Talk Gaming. I'm your host, Lukey Poo. As you noticed, we're doing a little different setup today. I normally have a face cam. We normally do all that. Today, we're going to try it a little bit differently. At the end of the video, I'll have a little poll that you can take and answer whether or not you think it worked, if it bothered you, if you liked it better, all that, so that we can figure out how we want to move forward. The reason I'm doing it is just because I want to take the show live so that I can read your comments in real time. I mean, that going live is just the natural progression of this type of show. So in order to do that, I have to make some changes to the setup. Right now, the face cam has been filmed with a DSLR, and I could use that as an input, but there's a lot of weird ways that you get there. I'd have to use the HDMI out on the camera and put it into like a capture card. It would just be an ordeal. So I'm going to try this. Let me know if it works for you, and we'll go from there. But a lot's happened this week, and we're going to talk about it all. The Nintendo Switch launched yesterday, and in general, people are very positive about it. They've given it rave reviews, most notably with regard to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Right now, as of the time of this recording, Zelda is sitting at a 98 on Metacritic, which is pretty impressive. That's impressive, but it's not all that it seems to be. And I want to talk about that because a lot of people are saying, well, this is clearly like the greatest game ever made, or at least one of the top 10, because it's gotten such crazy good reviews. I mean, that's the only thing that it could possibly mean. But there's more to it than that. It's not as straightforward as just what the Metacritic score means. You have to look at what is the Metacritic actually do, what are these reviews, how do they review these games, and we're going to talk about that because I want to give you an honest representation of the game, and I think just looking at a 98 on Metacritic is not exactly the best representation of that. Now, it's important to, in my opinion, on Metacritic specifically, the most important aspect is the user reviews, because those are reviews that people are putting on the games after they themselves have played it. I trust consumers who are paying money for the game much more than reviewers who are being provided the game. Now, that's not to say that these reviews for Zelda have been bought. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that people don't have as much skin in the game. They're just going to be honest. They're going to put it forward. Now, of course, there's a downside to that. It could be that an anti-Nintendo group could go on there, like a subreddit. They could send everyone over and leave just tons of negative reviews on the page for Zelda, and it could drag it down. But that's very rare, and I think that would be negligible at best. All of that aside, let's talk about why and how these games are reviewed. IGN gave The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild a 10 out of 10. All right? In their final review, they don't mention any negatives. They say that the game is just a masterpiece, right? That's all. I read through the entire thing and watched the video review. In the written review, he doesn't mention this, but in the video review, he mentions it, I believe, twice. And it's something I've noticed throughout all of these reviews. He mentions the game making him feel like a kid again. And in the interview, like IGN does these videos where they take the reviewers and then they do like an interview after the review has gone live, so they can ask them more details and more questions. And this reviewer said that the game really brings you back and makes you remember why you played games as a kid, why you... Basically, constantly referencing nostalgia and what they did as a kid, which is okay, but that's an important thing to remember when you are reviewing a game. And basically every single review I've read has mentioned this, that it's bringing them back to feeling like they did when they were kids. Why is that an issue? Well, when you're reviewing a game, I think it's important to be a little objective. Okay, I think that you should look at it through a completely unbiased lens, which of course you'll never be able to do, especially with what I'll say next. But it's still, I think it's important to review a game based on the game itself, standalone, not specifically in reference to other games that have come out or that are being talked about or that are in the same genre or series. Now, that's important to compare, and I understand why they do it, but it's important to understand that that's what they're doing, especially when they are not clear about it, which they aren't. They say that this is an incredible game, and that's all you need to know. It's a masterpiece that's redefining a generation and a franchise, which is great, but it's not all that it's cracked up to be. Basically, how these companies review games is they find out what the game is. Okay, it's Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Okay, so it's Legend of Zelda. Now let's go and find somebody, because they have to pick one reviewer to review it. They have to pick one person to sit down and do it. They don't have just one reviewer. They have a bunch of reviewers that they assign to different games based on their experience, based on their knowledge of the franchise or similar games in that sort of genre, and then they assign them to that game. So for instance, if you're reviewing Nioh, which came out earlier this year, then you would assign somebody who's played the Dark Souls series, because to assign a Nintendo fanboy to it who's never played a Soulsborne game, it would be kind of cruel, because it's completely different. So for the review, you would assign somebody who has knowledge of that genre, of that subset of that type of game, basically, which makes sense. That makes perfect sense. The difficulty and the problem comes when you give Nioh, for instance, a 95 or a 10 out of 10 or whatever. You have to understand what that's actually saying. It's a 95 for people who have played and who have the same experience as the reviewer. So if you've played the Zelda games and you played them in your youth and they are very, very near and dear to your heart, and you have been waiting patiently for this game for 5 years since they first teased it in 2012, then I'm sure that this is going to be a 10 out of 10 experience. It's going to be incredible, probably your game of the year, which is saying something, because there's going to be a lot of really, really good games this year. But with all of that said, if you are coming at the game without prior knowledge of the series, without any attachment to the previous games, it's not going to mean as much to you, and it's certainly not going to be a 10 out of 10 experience. Now, just the way that you can tell the difference, and how this worked is they assigned somebody who has a history of giving Nintendo games good reviews. They're Nintendo fans, which is not inherently a bad thing. But you have to remember that they do have a little bit of bias going into it, because they do play these games. They have played these games since they're kids, and The Legend of Zelda is very near and dear to them, which is not a bad thing. But you have to remember that when you're kind of translating the meaning of these reviews. So The Legend of Zelda, 10 out of 10. In their final summation paragraph, they say, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, this is a quote, is a masterclass in open world design and a watershed game that reinvents a 30-year-old franchise. It presents a wonderful sandbox full of mystery, dangling dozens upon dozens of tantalizing things in front of you that just beg to be explored. I've had so many adventures in Breath of the Wild, and each one has a unique story behind them, and behind what led me to them, making them stories on top of stories. And even after I've spent more than 50 hours searching the far reaches of Hyrule, I still manage to come across things I haven't seen before. I'll easily spend 50 to 100 hours more trying to track down its fascinating moments. End quote. So 10 out of 10. It is a masterclass in open world design. Now, just guess what they gave The Witcher 3, which is arguably, and I would argue, and apparently they would disagree, I would argue is a masterclass in open world design and in narrative storytelling. They gave The Witcher 3 a 9.3 out of 10. So still an amazing title. That's what they say. They call it, quote unquote, amazing, whereas they call Zelda a masterpiece as opposed to amazing. But this is just what I'm saying. They're comparing The Witcher 3 to other games in its genre. Really, I would argue that nothing has ever come close to what The Witcher 3 was trying to do, at least in recent memory. And even if you were comparing it to games of the 90s and early 2000s in the RPG grouping, I still don't think you'd come anywhere near what The Witcher 3 was able to pull off. But they still gave it a 9.3 out of 10 and gave Zelda a 10 out of 10. And these were, of course, reviewed by different people. Let me see if I can find their names. Vince Ingenito reviewed The Witcher 3. And let's go to the Legend of Zelda. Legend of Zelda was reviewed by Jose Otero. So two different reviewers, so of course two different mindsets. And the important thing is that they're comparing this game, Legend of Zelda, to other Legend of Zelda games. So of course, compared to those, I would hope it would be better than them. And when it's taken open world and it does a semi-decent job, then of course it's going to get a 10 out of 10. It's incredible. People have been waiting for this type of game since they were kids, and now they get it. Good for you. But if you're approaching The Legend of Zelda as a consumer who has never really been into the Legend of Zelda series, I think that you should honestly wait to see a review from somebody that you respect, somebody who has played typical games like the ones that you enjoy. People have asked me if I was going to purchase a Switch and if I was going to play it and play Legend of Zelda and do a review on it. Short answer, not for a long time. Really, I don't think so. What the big thing that bugs me is that to play Breath of the Wild, you have to spend a minimum of $360. And if you're getting all of that, and that includes the Switch and the game, just the Switch and the game. If you're going to have a good experience, the Switch only comes with 32 gigs of onboard memory, so you have to actually go out and buy a micro SD card, maybe a 256 gig or 128, whatever size you want, but it's going to be expensive. For a 256, you're going to be paying just as much or close to the Switch's total price just for an appropriate amount of storage for all the games that you want to store on it, which is insane. But not only do I not have the money for it right now, but I have other games that interest me. I was never into Legend of Zelda as a kid. I just did not get it. I didn't. I preferred to play the Oregon Trail and Sims and Red Faction. Like, I was that kid. So Legend of Zelda never appealed to me. It still doesn't. This game, people are saying it's a console seller, even though it's a $360 type of game that you have to pay to play it. No way is $360 a reasonable price for me for this game, especially after I've looked up gameplay and watched people play it. When I watched people play Horizon Zero Dawn, I saw that game and I said, I want to play that game. When I watch people play The Legend of Zelda, I say, I don't want to play that game. I think my little brother would, but I really have no real interest in it. I'd rather spend all that time in Horizon Zero Dawn or going back through the Witcher DLC, whatever it is. So I appreciate what Nintendo has done, but I am not buying the greatest game ever made BS that's coming out of a lot of reviewers. I think what this is reviewers simply reviewing based on nostalgia. They're probably giving up to 10 extra points just for the nostalgia factor. For instance, in this Legend of Zelda review, there are mentions of frame stuttering, of frame drops fairly consistently. Now, there has been a day one patch, but that apparently doesn't even fix it all. It's still there on the Switch and the Wii U. And so there's constant frame stutters fairly steadily in certain sequences. There's performance issues in general. And the gameplay is repetitive with just the same basic formula where you run around, do all sorts of stuff. The open world, everyone's talking about the open world. It's ginormously wide with a few interesting points kind of pinpointed. Again, if you watch the gameplay, you'll see all of this. It's got a lot of flaws, and it's still probably a 9 out of 10 or a 9.5 out of 10, but they're willing to go and put an extra 10% on, just tack it on, because it reminds them of being a kid. And I personally disagree with that. I think that shouldn't come into the equation. You can mention it certainly, but when you're reviewing it overall, I just don't get that. Now, of course, it's their review. They can say what they want. They can give it the score that they want. But if I ever play and review the game, I have a slight suspicion that it will not be getting a perfect score from me. Just because I don't think you should overlook those things just because it makes you feel good inside. I think you have to review it objectively, as if somebody is approaching the game for the first time and they look at it objectively. They say, this game does this, this, and this, and that does that, that, and that. Therefore, it gets this score. I disagree with a lot of the review philosophy going on, which I suppose transfers into my next topic, which is very simple. Basically, I've been playing a lot of Horizon Zero Dawn. Now, I'm currently going through midterms right now. Spring break is... it starts this coming weekend, so this coming week is my last week before spring break, so it's just full of finals. It's full of team presentations, it's full of business law case summaries and all sorts of fun things like that. So I'm very busy, and there's two parts to what I think should go into a review, and I think most people would agree with this. Horizon Zero Dawn is a big game. But it will take about 50 hours to complete. And with that 50 hours, you are going to be very, very busy. You're going to be engaged the whole time. That's not mindless grinding. You're going through doing interesting stuff for that whole time. And then I have to go and write a review and edit it together. And then I've got to publish it and do all that. Now, that's a lot of time that has to go into it, especially just the gameplay side, to be able to play the game, capture the footage I want to demonstrate the points I want to make, and then make the review. And in all reality, probably isn't going to happen this week. I want to do a fleshed out review probably Monday of spring break or something like that, and get that up and going, just throw it out there. Now, as to the exact style of my reviews, I'm not exactly sure. I disagree with getting review copies. I think you should have some skin in the game. So I haven't decided for sure if I will ever accept review copies. If I ever get a review copy, I think what I'll do is I will then buy a copy of the game and do it as a giveaway. If it's a good game, of course. I'm not going to give away a terrible game, but something like that. So I at least have some skin in the game. I just disagree with people who don't have to pay for games and then review them and tell you whether or not you should buy them. I get it, and it's not a big deal, but I think that just on a sort of philosophical, I suppose, level, ethical level maybe, I think you should have some skin in the game at the very least in order to do it justice. But that's just me. That's my opinion on reviewing games. As for the exact style, I want to look at it objectively and mention, as I said with the Zelda stuff, mention the elements that people like me, like say, well, Horizon Zero Dawn is a very interesting game, but coming at it with lots of knowledge of open world games and playing almost exclusively narrative open world RPGs, I can say that this game does this, this, and this well, but this, and this are extremely lacking, and do that and have that discussion. So as for a 0 to 10 score, probably not. I just don't think that's that's a great way of doing it. I think it would probably work better to put it in terms of scale compared to other games, or just a simple recommend or like stay away or something like that. I'll think about it some more and figure it out. But with Horizon Zero Dawn, specifically talking about Horizon Zero Dawn, that game is really fun. I'm just saying, that game is really, really fun. That game is so dangerous, though. It's very dangerous, because I have caught myself basically this entire previous week. A game came out on Monday night, I think it was. Yeah, Monday night. At about 11 p.m. I got access to it. So right as the clock turned over to 11 p.m. I started played till 1, and then went to bed, woke up at 6, and then went to school, then work, then came back home. Then went to rehearsal, then got home at like 10:30ish. Started playing, played till 1, went to sleep, woke up at 6 again. The whole process, same thing, day in, day out. Play it for about 2.5 hours, stay up till 1, and then go to bed, get about 5 hours, and then just do that on repeat the whole week, which I'm fine with. I enjoy it. I still get to play the game, which I'm happy about, but it makes it very hard to do a review, especially because these other more professional reviewers are getting the games 2 weeks ahead of time. And that's great for them, but the difficulty, of course, being that they have 2 weeks with a game, and it's their job to play it and then review it. I have everything else in the world to do, and then I can go and play the games, which is frustrating, and it takes me a bit longer to get through them, but it's still fun, and I still enjoy it, and I'm still thankful that I can play it. But that game is dangerous, because once you start playing, it's very easy to just get lost. Like last night I was playing, I queued it up at maybe 12:15, right after midnight, start playing, and I'm just chugging along. I'm taking out sawtooths and all this, just having a good time. And then I look over at the clock, and it's 1:45, and I'm like, holy crap, where did the last 90 minutes go? Really, no idea. It will suck up your life. Like, this game is so engaging that once you start, you can just thing to thing to thing. Like, talk about a dense open world. This is it. And the open world really does steal the show in this game. Like, walking around, you see these old dilapidated skyscrapers, and you just want to know what happened. It's not explicitly stated to you, at least not right away, and as to why that happened and why this world went to crap. And you are looking through the world, and you're like, this is weird. Like, why did this happen? And you can go through those buildings and find old recordings or entries in computers and read them and kind of piece it together yourself. And really, it's not a chore. For a lot of games, going around reading books and stuff, or reading little entries that people have left a long, long time ago before they died, normally that's a chore. But in this game, it's enjoyable, and it's actually engaging, and you want to do it, and you go out in the world looking for that, because the world is that legitimately interesting that you're like, how did all of this happen? This is very strange. Let's figure it out. Now, the game is, of course, not without its limitations, and we'll talk about all this in the review. There are some real problems with it. One of my biggest issues with it, which is becoming more and more prevalent as I play, is that for whatever reason, the game devs wanted to make Aloy a standalone kick-ass chick who goes through this world on her own, doesn't need a lot of help, and really just stands by herself through most of this. The problem with that, and I agree with that, I have no problem inherently with that. I think she's a strong protagonist, and I really enjoy her. The problem is that then there's no real secondary characters. There's only your first character, your protagonist, and then you have a bunch of kind of third tier characters that you might run into occasionally, like 3 or 4 times in the game, but really you couldn't care less about them. There's no real connection to people. You do a side quest, it takes you maybe 10 minutes. It's unique, it's interesting. These people have actual stories, but then you never see them again, and that's it. With The Witcher 3, you're running through a city and you're doing your thing, and then somebody calls over to you to help you in this alley. You run over there and there's a dead body, and then you use your Witcher senses to look for him. And before you know it, you're locked into a 3 or 4 hour side quest about a serial killer. And you meet new characters that you also will be engaged in with later on in the story, and everything connects, and you have these meaningful relationships with people as a result of these side quests. With Horizon Zero Dawn, that as far as I've gotten, doesn't happen. You do a fun side quest, and then they basically go away. You don't hear anything more from them. But you're willing to forgive it because it's interesting. It's believable in the world itself that you probably wouldn't see these people again, especially because right as you finish, you keep traveling to Meridian. You keep traveling northwest or east or wherever it is. You keep trying and moving on section after section to new places. So it's believable that you wouldn't see them again because you're in a different place. But nonetheless, I would have liked more characters that are steady and that are there consistently. Because with just Aloy, what they end up doing, instead of having conversations, like think The Last of Us, where you're just going through the open world, you go into a record store, you're looking for stuff, and then Ellie is over there and she says, it's sad, isn't it? And Joel's like, what do you mean? Well, it's sad. There's all this music and no one's here to listen to it. He's like, I guess so. That's like an actual interaction, and you can convey some narrative and some depth there, some ambiance. But with Horizon Zero Dawn, that doesn't happen. All that happens is Aloy talks to herself in actually a fair bit, especially in the early hours. She seems to talk to herself a lot. And the game at times assumes that you're stupid. And so right after you get told by an NPC to do something for the main quest or for a side quest, usually main quests, she will walk away. And after you're maybe 100 yards away, she'll repeat it to herself. She'll be like, I need to go over here and find this. Then I can help whoever. It's like, I know, I was listening. So a lot of the game assumes that you're not paying attention in whole sections, or that you're just easily distracted and that you're not really paying that much attention, which I can understand, especially in the modern day. But it is a little frustrating when it's like, yeah, I know. And plus, why are you talking to yourself? No wonder you were outcast. You're weird. So just in general, I think it's a good game. But it does leave a few things I think could have been done better. But this brings me to another thing, which is a video I made I think earlier this week. I think it was this week, specifically with regard to Xbox. Now, in this video, I was analyzing the business strategies of the Xbox One. Now, it was last week. That's what it was. February 23rd is when it went up. Now, I was analyzing the Scorpio and saying that the Play Anywhere feature, it really doesn't do much for people. Just because if it's trying to appeal to PC players, it doesn't do anything, because then all of the exclusives on the Xbox are available on PC. So why would they ever buy a console? It makes no sense. Zero. And all these fanboys started commenting. I found out the video was linked in a subreddit, and they were told to come over and dislike the video, which they did enforce. Still majority likes, of course, but still they came over. And if you follow me on Twitter, you've probably seen some of the comments that they've posted, which are quite telling as to their... I don't want to be too mean, but their mental capacity. A lot of them have no idea what they're talking about. Zero. So for instance, this comment, Jeff Hood said this. He said, I would never get a PC. I will stick with Xbox and pay $7, no problems. Okay. But he spelled I, then he did would, spelled WOOD. I would never get a PC. There's no punctuation in this either. So I will get a PC. I will stick with Xbox and pay $7.00 $. So it's not $7. I estimated about $700 currently. That's what it would be valued at. So $700, dollar sign goes on the other side, but that's okay. I can kind of figure out what you're saying. No problems. So it's like either this guy is a foreigner or he's very, very stupid. Or sometimes both. I mean, sometimes foreigners can be stupid. I'm not going to pretend like every foreigner is a genius. If I went over to Japan and I were stupid, I would be a stupid foreigner. That's how it is. But anyway, and then like this guy, Boogie Woogie, he commented this. So you're trying to tell me that Scorpio won't run 4K 60 FPS? The PlayStation Pro runs games at 4K 30 FPS. Scorpio has better specs all across the board, and you're trying to tell me it can't achieve 4K 60 FPS? You really need to smarten up, bud. Okay. This is something I've noticed a lot with social justice warriors as well. I don't know if you are highly engaged with that or if you've run into that. But I think I was watching a debate. What it was, I went to see Milo Yiannopoulos. I think you should hear everybody out. I think freedom of speech is incredibly important. And I think if you can't listen to somebody that you disagree with, then your views are probably not worth having. That's my personal opinion. If you want to shut people up just because they disagree with you or you disagree with them, I think that you're a weak-willed malcontent. And that's my personal opinion. So I went to hear this guy speak, a very controversial figure, no doubt. And during the Q&A section, a girl went up there, and you saw her immediately. You knew what she was all about. Purple hair, morbidly obese. How she got into that building, I don't know. The doors weren't that wide, but she made it either which way. Maybe she made it in through the loading dock or something. I'm in a mean mood. I don't know. I feel feisty today. But anyway, she waddled her way in, and she was asking a question. And it was the same type of delivery where it's like, so you think that illegal immigrants shouldn't be allowed in the country? Like, what? Like, and they asked this question as if it's so absurd. And then Milo just responded, yes, that's why it's illegal, because there's a law against it. So if you're following the law, it shouldn't be allowed. And she's like, well, so you're saying they shouldn't be allowed in here? Yes. I mean, this is the same type of thing, and I'm not condoning or endorsing any of his views. I'm just using that as an example, where it's the same style of question asking, where they assume the answer, and they assume that it's already a foregone conclusion. It's absurd. Boogie Woogie. So you're trying to tell me that Scorpio won't run 4K FPS or 4K 60 FPS? Yes. The PlayStation Pro runs games at 4K 30 FPS. Not actually. No, you don't know what you're talking about. The PlayStation Pro uses checkerboarding upscale algorithms to achieve 4K. It's not actual 4K. And so that's not actually true. It doesn't actually do 4K at 30 FPS. It does, I think, 2K upscaled to 4K. So it's not really the same thing. It's fake 4K. Now, the Scorpio, according to Phil Spencer, is capable of doing 4K at 30 FPS. Native 4K is what he said, at least for some games. And it's important to remember, not every game is created equally. Certain games have heavier workloads and would require more hardware to run it than others. Crysis is always going to be more demanding inherently than, say, Five Nights at Freddy's. It's going to be. That's not a controversial thing. Games are not created equally. So, probably for the middle of the line game, he's saying it can run native 4K. But in the same presser, Xbox recommended not doing that if you're a developer, because it would suck up all of your performance on one thing, which probably isn't even that important. To begin with. So he recommended doing maybe the checkerboarding upscaling and going for higher frame rates or something, which you could go for, or at least a more steady frame rate. So it could possibly do some sort of insanely weird upscaling algorithm and hit the 40s or 50s, maybe even 60. Who knows? maybe even 60. But to say that it will run native 4K at 60 FPS, no. And this is the big distinction that they're trying to say, and all of these comments are saying the Scorpio, like this one, asking, oh, I'd like to see you build a PC for $500 or even $700, as you said, hell, even under $1,000 that can do 4K gaming. And I said, well, it's a false premise because it's not recommended to do 4K natively. It's recommended by Xbox to do checkerboarded 4K, which is not the same as straight 4K. When you're playing on a GTX 1080 in 4K, you aren't doing any checkerboarding. It is rendering every pixel individually. It's giving you what you want in 4K. It's not cheating to get there in a very complicated mathematical way. But I don't expect them to really understand how this works. I'm not really even that aware of how this works. From what I understand, basically how it works is they take one pixel and then using the context of the pixel data around each pixel, they add, I think it's 3 pixels to each one pixel based on what's around them so that they can, get up to 4K, but it's doing this checkerboarding thing where it takes every other one and then it uses the data around it to kind of guess at what it should be or what it should look like if you were to take it into a 4K scale, which works and it looks pretty good, but it's not native 4K. It's not true 4K. So just this whole thing. Now, with Horizon Zero Dawn, the reason I brought this up, Horizon Zero Dawn came out and it was very successful. Not even was. It is a very successful console exclusive. Now, I'm not a big fan of exclusives, but as a business connoisseur, as somebody who enjoys looking at business plans and analyzing it, I can safely say PlayStation is winning large part because of their exclusives. People see, and Xbox fans are like, well, it's all about the games. It's not about the hardware because the Xbox One is a weaker console. So they say, it's not about the hardware. It's about the games. Yeah, you're right. You're right. And PlayStation, for the larger market, tends to have better games that appeal to more people. They just do. After Until Dawn came out, people went out and bought a PS4. They saw PewDiePie play it and they said that looks fun. And then they went out and they bought one. Bloodborne came out for it. That was a console seller too. And with a console only having one console selling game, for instance, like the Switch. Take the Switch, for instance, with Legend of Zelda. That's supposedly a console seller. But you only get one game for $360. That's a lot of money for one game. As PlayStation has gone through year by year, release after release, you've added to that console selling list. So now you can get a PS4 for $250, usually bundled. Best Buy for Black Friday, for instance, had a bundle where you could get 3 games and a PS4 for $250. That's insane. And each of those 3 games could be those exclusives. So you could get Bloodborne, Until Dawn, and some other, like basically any other game that you want, or Uncharted 4. That was the other one that was included. I was blanking on that. So you could get Bloodborne, Until Dawn, and Uncharted 4. Or even The Last of Us Remastered. Stick that in there too. Swap out Until Dawn with that. So you have The Last of Us Remastered, Uncharted 4, and Bloodborne. Those are console sellers. And all of a sudden you have 3 games that are AAA titles that are incredible, that are widely regarded as some of the best games of 2016, 2015. And you're getting a console that has future exclusives coming out, like The Last of Us Part 2, like Bloodborne 2, and Horizon Zero Dawn, and you're only paying $250 for all of that. That is a good deal. That is a good deal. So as the Switch goes through these iterations, it's going to have to really demonstrate that it can have consistent exclusives that are worth it. Super Mario World, or whatever they're calling it, That looks like it could be really interesting. That will probably add to the console selling aspect of it. Then you have 2 games. If they launch that correctly around Black Friday, then you can bundle Zelda with the Switch. So you pay $300, you get Zelda and the Switch, so you save $60, and then you can also get maybe a 25% off discount on Mario. That's how they should do it. At this point, Nintendo has to realize it's about building up market share. It's not about trying to make profits. Just like with the PS3, when those and the Xbox 360, when those consoles initially launched, Xbox and Sony were losing money on each sale. They were losing money on each sale of a console because the console hardware was so expensive compared to what they were pricing it at. But they did that to get the market share, and then they made it up in game sales. As the technology became cheaper and cheaper, they started making their money back, and that's just how it should be. Nintendo doesn't really work that way. They never have, to be fair, but they don't work that way. So they look at it and they just say, well, we want to make money right now, so we're going to charge $300 for the Switch, which, okay, I guess that's fair. Where it really gets atrocious is in the add-ons, like with the Pro controller costing $80. Each Joy-Con, I think, is $60 or $70. It's absolutely insane. And the expandable storage that's basically necessary, you're going to have to pay. They cheaped out on that. You're going to have to pay another $150 to get a healthy amount of storage for all the games that you want to put on it. It's just insane. So really they have to prove themselves, and we'll see if it happens. I'm interested to see who all got a Switch. I'm not going to get one. If I ever get one, it'll be around Black Friday with a very good deal and sale on it. I just have other games I want to play. The games don't appeal to me right now. I feel bad saying that because I know a lot of people love them, but it really just doesn't appeal to me. I'm sorry. But one thing I noticed with Horizon Zero Dawn, when that game came out, Xbox fanboys were leaving comments on the videos. They were going YouTube video to YouTube video, leaving comments spoiling the game. Now, the spoilers, I think I might have talked about this previously, but either way, I'll recap it. Basically, there was a point where something leaked and the Horizon Zero Dawn ending was supposedly leaked. Now, I'm not going to say if those leaks were correct or wrong, just because I don't see why I should. I think that would be kind of a dick move for me to do that. In case you read the spoilers, I'm not going to say if they're true or wrong either which way, because I want it to be a surprise either which way. But they had these spoilers, and the Xbox fanboys, of course, haven't played the game, so they assumed it was true and just went around video to video spamming in the comment sections trying to spoil the game for PS4 players. For people who were buying the game and wanted to enjoy it, they were trying to ruin the experience for them, which that made me angry. It made me real angry, really angry, and it's only gotten worse in the last week. I think I even talked about this, like or mentioned it in a video earlier, but my kind of initial thoughts video on Horizon Zero Dawn. But damn, like these people, if you're doing that, like gamers, okay, I'm going to ramble for a second. Gamers are a community of people who enjoy playing video games, who want to enjoy their hobby with other people, who want to share it with other people, who just want to be part of something, share their love for this hobby. If you are doing crap like that, I do not consider you a gamer. I consider you a disgusting waste who I don't want anything to do with. And I'm not a PS4 fanboy. A lot of people assume I am because I happen to play some PS4 games. I'm not a PS4 fanboy at all. I'm just honest. I'm just honest. If Xbox is doing a stupid thing, I'm going to say they're doing a stupid thing. If Sony is doing a stupid thing, I will say they're doing a stupid thing. That's just what I do. And so if I'm complimenting one company and criticizing another, that doesn't mean that I inherently hate the other or that I'm a huge fan of one or over the other, but rather that I'm just being honest and straightforward about it. And proof of this, for instance, the Microsoft Game Pass or Xbox Game Pass that they're doing, I think it's very pro-consumer. $10 a month, you can have access to all of these formerly awesome games that are just older. And you have this whole backlog, and you actually get to download it, so you're not streaming it like the PS4 Now thing that they did, PlayStation Now thing they did. So now you actually have basically used games always available on a Netflix sort of style. So you pay $10 a month and you have access to all these games. You can download them for 30 days and play through them. That's awesome. That's awesome. Great job, Xbox. Wonderful. I love that. I think more companies should do that. That's amazing. But your community is vitriolic and is full of very stupid people who just want to ruin the experience of other people. I get that you're having fun. Oh, yeah, no, we're going to go. We're going to spoil the game for these PS4 or Sony ponies, whatever. Come on. How old are you? The answer is probably like 12, but still, I don't consider you a gamer if you're doing that because you're trying to ruin that hobby for other people. You're trying to destroy that for other people instead of what you should be doing, which is improving the experience in general for everyone. And it irks me. It really irks me because I want to be even-handed. I have not noticed it, or I have not come across stories of Sony ponies doing the same type of crap, which there should be many more stories of that, even just because there's more Sony ponies. If you look at the sales of the PS4 compared to the Xbox One, there should be many, many more Sony ponies that are doing crap like that. But it seems specific to the Xbox community, and it only taints my view of your group. And so if you're an Xbox fanboy, leave that comment down below. Let me know what you think of the situation, because I'm interested to hearing what somebody who's at least rational and is a Xbox gamer specifically and exclusively, I'm interested to hear what you have to say about it, because if you play with these people, I'm sure you probably have some insight to it. But it blew me away that they would do this, that they would try to ruin the experience for others. It's just... I was very disgusted by it. I expected much, much more, but apparently that was my mistake. That was my mistake. As I've learned through this Xbox Death of Xbox is Coming video, a lot of the people that are big Xbox fanboys don't tend to have a great mental capacity. Or maybe they're just young, or maybe they're outside of the country and they don't know English very well. Whatever it is, there's a consistent and steady trend of these people not knowing what they're talking about, but assuming they do, of calling people names, of being incredibly immature, and it's something specific to the Xbox community. It's bizarre. I spend all day, every day of my life thinking and working in the gaming space, for YouTube, for all of this. And it's something specific to Xbox. And it's very, very strange to me. It's very strange to me. And I'm not sure what it is grounded in. If you have any thoughts, leave those down below. I'm actually genuinely interested. I might be missing something obvious, but it's something I've specifically noticed with the Xbox community. But with that said, I mean, I will say Game Pass. This is something that was announced this week. Right as it happened, GameStop's stock price tanked 10%, which is big. But basically what it is, it's you pay $10 and then it's almost like Netflix or Blockbuster or a rental service for older games that you can download. You have access to them, I think, for 30 days, and then you have to re-download them or something. It's not exactly 100% clear, but I think it's wonderful. giving access and giving life to these old games that people might have set aside. Some of the games included were like even Mad Max, for instance. If you didn't want to pay $30 to play Mad Max, you can just become a member of this Game Pass, $10 a month, and you just play Mad Max. You don't have to pay $30. Already there, you're saving money, and the developer's getting money. Publishers getting some money. Like, everyone wins. It's a win-win-win. It's awesome. I totally agree with it. I think it's wonderful. I want more things like Game Pass. I think it's phenomenal. More of that. Now, the next thing I want to mention and discuss is something I kid you not, I've been meaning to mention for probably 2 months, a month and a half about. Ramiz Gindullin, who is a Patreon supporter of mine, asked me a question. And this is something I do. If you are a patron over on Patreon, so if you help me, fund this show, which I would greatly appreciate. This show specifically is ad-free, so it's paid for by myself and by my Patreon contributions. So if you want to support the show, links in the description. But this viewer, Ramiz Gindullin, who is one of my patrons, he left a comment, and I recorded this video, but what I realized is I never uploaded it. So I recorded a video answering this question, but I never uploaded it. So recently he posted and was like, it's been 3 weeks. Anyway, don't worry, man. Still like your show. Keep up the good work. I completely spaced it. I just assumed I had published it, but I never did. So I'm going to answer it now on the show. Thank you for the question, Ramiz. The question is, hi, so just out of curiosity, do you pay for PlayStation Network Plus while you are playing Bloodborne, and why? Actually, what do you think about online being gated by a paywall on both consoles now? Good question. So good, I made a video about it. Just forgot to post it. I think that this is an interesting thing. The big advantage used to be that PlayStation, in order to play online, you didn't have to pay, and Xbox, you had to pay for Xbox Live. I think in general, paying for online is incredibly stupid. That's probably just the PC player in me coming out, but in general, I just find it counterintuitive. It should be free. I think it just should be. Now, I understand why they're doing it. PlayStation and the Xbox, they charge for their online service so that they can give it back to you in certain ways, so that they can expand server operations, so that they can do things like Game Pass and figure that out, and all of these things, which I really, really appreciate. So if like the money is being used for something good, I can appreciate it, but it's got to offer me something real. In general, I'm not an online player. I really I bought Battlefront, the new one. I bought Battlefront, I think 2 days after it launched, full price, which especially back then was very rare for me. I just didn't do that ever. But I bought the game because it looked fun, and I played it. I think I put like 8 hours into it online, just walked away. I opened it up this past weekend with my little brother Eli, who's 6, and we had a good time. He's actually pretty good at it, which is scary, but he's pretty good at it. But we played it and it was fun, but online just doesn't and hasn't ever really grabbed me. For instance, Battlefield 1 even. I enjoy that game, but I'm in general a first person or a single player narrative appreciating gamer. I like it when games can tell stories. I like it when the world tells a story. And online multiplayer just in general seems to go against that. It's about grinding. It's about doing that. So it's not really for me. You ask specifically about paying for PSN Plus while playing Bloodborne and why. I don't. I have beaten Bloodborne twice now. Gone through the DLC. I'm going through the DLC again in a new game. It's awesome. I highly recommend that game. Highly. If anything is a console seller, Bloodborne is it. But that game is amazing, and I play through it. But the only thing you get for playing online on a Dark Souls or Soulsborne game, rather, is you get some access to other players. You can play with people, do the co-op thing, which I never do. None of my friends play Bloodborne. They all frankly kind of suck at it, so it wouldn't be of much help. And plus, again, like I said, I just like going through these games by myself by my lonesome. I'm weird like that. But I'll just go through and do that. This is something I've been thinking of, though. If I can get this show to go live, what I'd like to do is maybe even create a secondary show other than Talk Gaming, where it's just like a hangout, like a bro time type thing where we can play games together. And we set up a server in, I don't know, name a game, name any game. We could set up a server and just play it. You could go over and in Dark Souls, for instance, Dark Souls 3, you just create a little password or a code or anything, and then they put it in. Then all of a sudden, 3 viewers are playing with me, and we're live streaming it. And we're all talking. Then some people swap in and out, and it could be super, super fun. That could be super cool. Maybe that's what Talk Gaming Extras will be after the show. We do the show live for an hour, and then we play live for a couple hours, a couple different games. That could be super, super fun. So for that reason, I would do it. But as of right now, how I play these games, especially Bloodborne, I go by myself and I just chug along. Plus, I don't like being invaded in those games. I really don't like being invaded in Dark Souls. I don't like being invaded in Bloodborne. Some people love it. Some people love the challenge. Some people, you can look up some of these videos of people doing crazy things after being invaded, where they go and they hide and they pretend to be a statue, and then all of a sudden they come out and they attack. It's really fun. There's some fun stuff you can do. I just don't enjoy it. I'd rather go and fight the boss. But that's just me. So no, I currently do not have PlayStation Network Plus. Believe it or not, I just don't. I have a lot of other things I have to spend money on with the channel, especially. So I'm pouring money into the channel to try to expand it. It's all investments, which are starting to pay off. It's coming back, but it is still a lot of stuff has to be done and has to be built up. So it's just not for me right now, but one day I think it will be. Eventually I will get PlayStation Network Plus, but right now it's just there's not enough there for me, and for the games I'm playing, it's not a necessity. So I just don't really need it. But thank you for the question, Ramiz. Again, if you are a patron, or if you want to become a patron, you basically get access to this community page where you can go over and post questions directly. And I will answer them either directly to you or in a video response. So it gives us a little, an ability to get a little closer. I've only been drinking water all morning. How is this possible? Plus, yeah, that's why the reason this episode is going up later is because I was out and about yesterday, and then I was up super late, so I just decided, you know what, I'll record it Saturday morning, I'll put it together, get it up Saturday evening, it'll be okay. Hopefully this is okay. But yes, I'm going to put up a poll right now. It's popping up. It's a little card. You just click on that, and you can fill out. It's just one question thing. If it's good, if this not having a face cam worked, if you like it to go back to the way it was, or if something else would work, just answer that, and then I can get right there 1,000+ responses to it, and that's very helpful for me. And if 1,000 people want it, I'll do it. That's just how it is. So. Yeah, but that's all we really have to talk about today. If you have any comments, questions, anything that we talked about that you found interesting or would like to discuss further, leave those down below. I'm going to read them all. I may not respond to them all because there's so many, but I do read all of them, especially on these Talk Gaming full episodes. You guys are the real fans, so I read through all these comments, usually even again right before the next episodes, just to kind of see what you guys have been saying. So definitely leave those thoughts down below. But that's all I have. That's all I have. Thank you for watching. Talk to you later. Peace out. Love you. Bye.